This is a jet showroom, not a shelter. If you want charity, go back to the street. They thought he didn't belong in a place where planes cost $75 million. They mocked his clothes, his silence, his purpose. But that man was Keanu Reeves, and he wasn't there to pose next to a jet. He came to buy one to rescue children from a war zone. The sun in Austin, Texas, was merciless, beating down on chrome and glass. Inside the marble and steel expanse of the Zephyr Arrow private showroom, every surface gleamed as if polished to reflect only wealth, the kind of place where shoes never squeaked and voices always echoed, unless you were rich enough to be above sound. Then came the footsteps, heavy, slow, unapologetic. The doors hissed open, and in walked a man the room wasn't designed to welcome. Keanu Reeves, though no one recognized him yet, crossed the threshold with a canvas backpack slung over one shoulder, his worn-out boots leaving a faint trail of dust across the flawless floor. His jacket was faded, buttons mismatched, and a few strands of hair slipped from under his black ball cap. He looked like someone waiting for a bus, not someone about to buy a jet. The receptionist, a young man with gelled hair and perfect teeth, blinked twice before leaning over his glass desk. "Sir, this is a private facility. We don't do walk-ins." Keanu didn't flinch. "I'm not here to look, I'm here to buy." Silence. From the second-floor gallery, a pair of clients in designer loafers paused their champagne and tilted their heads. Someone giggled. A woman in a tight navy dress passed by and muttered, "Is he lost? Maintenance must have let him in." Keanu approached the centerpiece of the showroom, a scale replica of the Gulfstream G800, its pearl-white hull glowing under recessed lights. He stared at it quietly, as if he wasn't just looking at a jet, but at something far away, something urgent. Then came the footsteps of Derek, the lead sales rep, a man whose Rolex screamed louder than his cologne. He took one look at Keanu and laughed. "All right, sir. Whatever TikTok prank this is, I'm impressed. But this showroom's for qualified clients. People who don't wear Goodwill jackets to shop for $80 million aircraft." Keanu looked up, his voice calm and measured. "I'd like to speak with someone about the G800. Time sensitive." Derek raised an eyebrow. "Sure, and I'm the Pope." He turned around, clapping twice. "Someone get this guy a brochure or a broom." Laughter erupted from the back. 3 interns sipping cold brew, trying to film discreetly with their phones. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, he's serious." But Keanu didn't move. He just kept looking at the jet, his lips barely parted, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a small notebook, stained and creased. "Do you know how many minutes it takes for a child in cardiac distress to die without air evac?" he asked softly. No one answered, but it wasn't a question for them. It was a countdown, and it had already started. He didn't move. Keanu Reeves stood silently beside the model jet, letting the sneers and whispers collect around him like flies. He wasn't used to being invisible. But here, under crystal chandeliers and million-dollar aircraft, his face, his name, his history meant nothing. Not when he dressed like a man who couldn't afford valet parking. Derek leaned closer, his polished leather shoes just shy of touching Keanu's boots. His voice dropped into a half-whisper, half-snarl. "Look, I'm going to be real with you. You don't belong here. This is not a museum. It's not a zoo either. These jets are real, and so are the bank wires behind them." Keanu's expression didn't change. "I said I want the G800. I'm not here to waste your time." Behind him, more footsteps approached, curious, hungry for something to gawk at. A young couple in silk and suede stopped to watch, wine glasses in hand. The woman leaned into her boyfriend's shoulder, chuckling. "Who let the wilderness in?" The man played along, loud enough for others to hear. "Maybe he thinks the planes are up for a raffle." Laughter spread, not cruel, but dismissive, casual, the way the wealthy mocked what didn't resemble themselves. Keanu looked over at Derek again. "Do you know what this jet's top altitude is?" Derek rolled his eyes. "Do you know what this floor's tolerance is for jokes?" At that moment, a tall blonde woman in a white blazer, clipboard clutched to her chest, arrived. Gretchen, the showroom floor manager. Her voice was sharp, precise, coated in corporate ice. Is there a problem here? Derek gestured with both hands like a magician revealing a failed trick. Just a little confusion. This gentleman insists he's here to buy the G800. She looked Keanu up and down. Her eyes did a quick audit. Jacket creased, boots dirty, hat too low. No Rolex, no assistant, no sign of wealth. Sir, we do private appointments only. I'm afraid you'll have to vacate the main floor. Keanu met her gaze, calm and controlled. The appointment was never for me. It's for them. He slid the notebook from his pocket and opened it. A photo was taped inside. 5 children, 2 in wheelchairs, 3 smiling through bandages and missing teeth. 1 girl held a handwritten sign. Thank you, Mr. K. Gretchen didn't even look at the page. A turn. You stained your brand. To Derek, she said. Escort him out, please, and make sure he doesn't touch anything. Derek smiled wide with pleasure. He stepped toward the rear wall, past the espresso counter and sample color swatches. Actually, he said over his shoulder, voice now loud enough to grab attention from the entire room. Let's give him a parting gift. He reached under a shelf and pulled out a small paint bucket. Bright red, used for design mock-ups. Keanu turned, confused. Then a splash. Red paint exploded across his chest and face. Laughter sharper this time. Few gas. 1 phone recording. Now you match the emergency exit signs. Derek smirked. And still, Keanu didn't raise his voice. Didn't flinch. He just wiped the paint from his eye and whispered, You just wasted more than paint. The paint dripped in slow streaks, thick and glossy, down the front of Keanu's jacket. A sharp splash had landed across his cheekbone, streaking crimson into his beard like a wound. Red ran across his chest, soaking into the faded canvas like it had found its target. For a moment no one spoke. Then the sound came. First a chuckle, then a burst of laughter. The showroom exploded in noise. Phones were lifted. 1 man whistled. Someone clapped slowly, mockingly. Performance art. Finally, something bold in aviation. Keanu stood still, blinking through the sting in his eye. He wiped the red from his brow with the sleeve of his jacket. His fingers trembling just slightly. Not from fear, not from anger, but from the weight of restraint. Across the showroom, Gretchen crossed her arms, unfazed. You brought this on yourself, she said coldly, voice slicing through the laughter. If you hadn't lied, none of this would have happened. Derek tossed the empty bucket aside with a casual clank. That's what happens when clowns sneak into first class. Behind Keanu, one of the interns whispered to another. Is this real? Like this can't be legal, right? Shoo, the other replied. It's hilarious. Keep filming. A splash of red had pooled beneath Keanu's boots. It smelled synthetic, sharp. The same paint they used for prototype decals on corporate jets. He could feel every eye on him, every pixel of every phone. He could leave, walk away, disappear like he had countless times before. But something deeper, older, anchored him to the spot. Not pride, purpose. He looked down at his notebook. The edge of the photo inside now smeared red. Little Yara, 6 years old, malaria survivor, the smallest of the 5. She had drawn a plane next to her name. The wings were crooked. He closed the notebook softly and lifted his gaze. This jet, he said loud enough to carry, his voice steady despite the red, isn't for me. The room quieted, if only slightly. It's for medevac missions, Sudan, Somalia, Syria. Places where the runways are dirt and the people are forgotten. Someone coughed. Someone else lowered their phone. I've funded over 2,000 medical flights in the last 5 years. I don't talk about it because it's not about me. But today you made it about me. He stepped toward Gretchen. Paint still dripped. His boots left red smudges on the white tile. So let's be clear. You didn't stain a jacket. You stained your brand. And if any of you ever ask why people don't trust luxury, this moment is your answer. He didn't yell, didn't raise his hands. but the silence that followed was louder than any explosion. In the corner, one of the junior staff quietly powered off her phone. Her eyes burned with shame. Upstairs, behind tinted glass, someone was watching, someone important, and in that moment they moved, behind the mirrored glass on the second floor. James Lerman froze mid-sentence. The boardroom lights above flickered slightly as one of the interns fumbled for the remote, switching the surveillance feed to full screen. There, in full color and horrifying clarity, was Keanu Reeves, soaked in red paint, standing silently before a semicircle of gawking staff and VIP clients. The CEO arrives. James' knuckles tightened around his coffee cup. "Is that who I think it is?" One executive murmured. James didn't answer. He didn't need to. He was already out of his chair. Downstairs, the floor remained awkwardly quiet. The audience, once amused, now squirmed in a kind of collective unease. No one made eye contact. No one moved to help. Keanu, still stained, still standing, had become impossible to look at and impossible to ignore, until the elevator chimed. Ing. Heads turned. From behind the brushed steel doors stepped James Lerman, chairman of Zephyr Arrow Global. He was never supposed to be on site. He was certainly never supposed to walk the showroom floor, but he walked now. Fast, purposeful, straight through the red footprints in tension. He stopped in front of Keanu. The silence snapped taut. Then James removed his own blazer, took out a handkerchief, and began gently wiping red from Keanu's jawline. "Mr. Reeves," James said softly, "I had no idea you'd arrived. I am deeply sorry." Keanu said nothing. He didn't need to. James turned to Gretchen and Derek. "You two, my office now. Leave your badges." They hesitated. He didn't repeat himself. Security was already moving. Then James faced the rest of the room. "I want every phone in this room surrendered right now. This showroom is closed until further notice." Dozens of people began nervously reaching into their pockets. James placed a hand on Keanu's shoulder. "You came here for a reason that matters more than any of this. You don't need to explain it. You just need the jet." Keanu finally nodded. "They're waiting, and they don't have time." James looked around at the mess, the paint, the silence, the shame. "Then let's get you in the air." And for the first time that day, someone applauded. Just one, but it was enough. The internet didn't wait. Though James Lerman had demanded all phones be surrendered, it was already too late. One clip, 29 seconds long, had made it out. Keanu Reeves standing in red paint, silence all around him. His voice calm but cutting. "You didn't stain a jacket. You stained your brand." By the time Keanu followed James through the back hallway toward the executive hangar, the video had hit 1 million views. By the time the jet's engines began to warm, it hit 5. In the hangar, the private Gulfstream G800 shimmered under floodlights, fully fueled with a crew already on standby. Keanu walked beside James in silence. His jacket was still damp, but he refused a fresh change of clothes. "Let it show," he muttered. "Let them see what silence looks like." James nodded once but said nothing. He had been in boardrooms with prime ministers, arms dealers, even astronauts, but never had he felt so distinctly out of his depth, so humbled. As they reached the base of the boarding stairs, a figure approached. An older man in a navy press vest with a white armband marked Humanitarian Corridor UN. "Mr. Reeves, I wasn't sure you'd make it." Keanu shook his hand firmly. Neither were they. The man smiled, then looked past him. "You've gone viral." Keanu turned toward the massive LED screen bolted above the hangar wall. It was broadcasting a news alert. The headline read, "Actor Keanu Reeves targeted, humiliated in aircraft showroom, still flies out for medical mission." The reporter mid-sentence said, "Currently en route to coordinate the extraction of 6 critically ill children from Sudan refugee camps." The actor declined comment, but sources close to him say this is his 5th such mission this year alone. Behind them, the showroom was now swarmed by journalists, protesters, and activists. The gates had failed to hold. In the air traffic control tower, A young woman wiped tears from her eyes as she watched the plane taxi. My brother, he's in one of those camps. Meanwhile, in a downtown cafe, Derek scrolled through his phone, pale, his face drained of the smugness it once wore like armor. They found my name, he whispered to himself. They know I did it. Beside him, Gretchen's phone buzzed violently. Email after email, termination requests, apology requests, death threats, but also something else. A message from the Board of Humanitarian Aviation Oversight, forwarded directly to James. Your brand may have stumbled today, but one man just made your jet more meaningful than all your advertising combined. Back at the hangar, Keanu paused before stepping onto the jet. He turned once, just once, to look at the hangar full of people behind him. Not the executives, not the press, but the ground crew, the young girl in safety orange, the technician holding his breath. He raised his hand, just 2 fingers, a salute to everyone who ever stayed silent until now. Then he boarded, and the jet rose, not into clouds, but into clarity. It started with a single resignation letter. By the time Keanu's jet cleared U.S. airspace, bound for Nairobi, 3 senior executives at Zephyr Arrow had emailed their departures. Not for vacation, not for reassignment. They were distancing themselves fast from what was already being called the paint incident. The clip had gone viral, but it wasn't the splash of red that kept people watching. It was what Keanu didn't do. No shouting, no retaliation, just that voice. You didn't stain a jacket. You stained your brand. It echoed across networks, podcasts, late-night monologues, TikToks with piano music. Every translation captioned the same quote. And then came the leak, an anonymous file uploaded to a public server. The Zephyr dossier. Thousands of internal documents, emails mocking PR charity stunts, a memo instructing sales teams to prioritize optics over ethics, a spreadsheet showing rejected requests from disaster relief agencies because media AOI was too low. But worst of all, a hidden clause in their client contract stated they could refuse humanitarian discounts without explanation. That's when the flood began. Celebrities once silent now rallied. Angelina Jolie tweeted, "He didn't do this for the cameras. The cameras showed up to witness character." BTS posted the quote on their official Instagram. Even the Pope's account posted a cryptic Latin phrase, Veritas sub rubro, truth beneath the red. Investors pulled out. Zephyr Arrow's stock plunged 37% overnight. 3 of their 7 global showrooms were vandalized. 1 bore a graffiti tag. This brand refused to fly medicine. Meanwhile, James Lerman, CEO, sat before a Senate Oversight Committee. "Yes, I authorized the aircraft for Mr. Reeves' mission. No, I was not aware of the incident in real time." He paused. "But I take full responsibility, and we will repair this. Not with words, but with action." He slid a file across the desk to the committee chair. Inside, an executive restructure, a new partnership proposal with Medicine Sans Fronteras, a commitment to donate 1 private jet per year for humanitarian evacuation efforts. Back at the Nairobi airstrip, Keanu Reeves stepped off the plane into thick East African air. The tarmac was quiet until a soft cry broke through. "Mama, he's here." 5 children ran forward. Not because he was a celebrity, but because he came back. A nurse whispered to her colleague. He brought supplies no one else would deliver. "No cameras," Keanu said, waving a hand. "Just do what matters." And in that moment, the world saw the twist. The real story wasn't about paint. It was about who bled quietly and still chose to fly. 3 weeks later in New York City, in a crowded press room at the New York Times headquarters, the CEO of Zephyr Arrow, James Lerman, stood at a podium. No screens, no logos, no prepared branding behind him. Only a white backdrop. "We were wrong," he said simply. "We built our empire on speed and precision, but we forgot compassion, and that ends today." In the front row, Gretchen sat stone-faced in a charcoal suit. No longer a manager, just a former employee. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap, but her eyes darted toward the exit every few seconds. Next to her, Derek, the man who'd thrown the paint, slumped in a wrinkled dress shirt. No one clapped for him. No one even looked at him because now everyone knew what they did. Zephyr Arrow was fined $18.6 million by Global Ethics Boards. Lawsuits were filed by human rights groups and former partners. 3 board members resigned, and Gretchen, once the icy gatekeeper of the elite showroom, now received death threats and boycott calls. She tried apologizing publicly, rehearsed and tearful, but it came too late. "The man you tried to humiliate," one journalist had said to her, "gave up his privacy to fly medicine across a war zone. What did you ever fly?" Derek, once smug and untouchable, was permanently blacklisted from the aerospace industry, his face frozen mid-laugh in the viral